Austin, Texas is many things, both good and bad. And if you're considering living there, there are 5 facts we feel you must know before potentially moving. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Living in Austin, Texas. My name is Frank. I work with the Living in Austin group, a team of agents at eXp Realty, and we help people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. So don't hesitate. Whether you are 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team any time of day, any day of the week. It is what we love to do. So yes, as mentioned in this video, we are talking about 5 facts we feel you must know about Austin, Texas before potentially relocating here. Truth of the matter is, Austin is very unique, and I realize the same can be said for many cities in the United States being unique in their own ways, but what I'm getting at is Austin is unique in the context of the state of Texas. So for example, you have Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio as the other main cities in the state. And of course, they are unique in their own ways as well, but they're going to feel much more Texan. In the case of Austin, with it being such a popular relocation hotspot, a place that people move to from all over the place all the time, it is going to be a bit different. Many would argue, myself included, that it is perhaps the least Texan place to live in the entire state of Texas. With that in mind, there are some things to talk about and things you might want to be made aware of, so let's get to it. For starters, let's talk about how touristy Austin, Texas is becoming. It has evolved quite a bit. Once upon a time, Austin, Texas was just an old, small college town. And then over the years, it developed in popularity. More people started flocking here, especially just in the past 5 to 10 years alone. And so it has changed quite a bit. What was once this cool, under the radar, authentic, kind of artistic, progressive city has turned into this corporate, commercialized tech hub. I mean, it is a tech city now. That is not even an exaggeration. And on top of that, for the longest time, Austin, Texas has already been home to numerous festivals. However, it would seem, again, in the past 5, 10, maybe 15 years, that the popularity and attention it gets due to these festivals, combined with the tech scene booming here, that it's no longer just some cool city that has its festivals. Now it's like festival season. Now it's really on the map, and of course it attracts a lot of tourists. So what I'm getting at is that the culture has really changed. I mean, for example, just in festival season, walking around downtown, trying to drive around downtown, or even a place like the Domain north of downtown, it's going to feel different. Unless you're someone who loves to partake in those activities several times a year, it is going to be a headache. And in addition to smaller side effects of the culture changing of the tourism, such as festival season, you're also going to have long-term ramifications that are more serious. And what I'm getting at by that is the subject of crime. Ever since Austin, Texas has really shifted, ever since it's really evolved, ever since it's really changed, the crime has reflected that. In recent years, statistics are way up. Aggravated assaults are up, burglaries are up, murders are up. I mean, we have shootings now. Am I blaming that specifically on something like festivals? Of course not, but it's just an example of how Austin just really is so different than it used to be. In some ways for the better, and others for the worse. And of course, let's be honest, with all that said, forget about affordability either. As it currently stands, Austin, Texas is above and beyond the most expensive city to live in the entire state of Texas. So it's really not just a culture thing, not just a touristy thing. It affects people's quality of life. And before you know it, more people than not will eventually be priced out. Up next, let's talk about transportation in Austin, Texas, whether it be just getting around or literally talking about the public transportation. So let's just start there. In my own subjective opinion, I would describe Austin's public transportation as beyond lackluster, especially if you're coming from a place like San Francisco or Philadelphia or perhaps Manhattan, where you basically have infrastructures of public transportation and it's a way of life. The way I would describe public transportation in Austin, Texas is a bit of an afterthought. Do not get me wrong, of course we have it, of course it does its job. We have the Capital Metro, we have the buses, we have the Metro Rail, which is a train, which in my opinion is actually pretty cool. But again, that's from the perspective of a Texan, that's from the perspective of an Austinite. So if you're coming here from a different city that has its own better infrastructure, it's going to be a little bit disappointing. Especially if you are not going to be living within the city limits of Austin, Texas. Pretty much once you leave downtown Austin, yes, you are going to have some options homes in the surrounding towns or suburbs, but otherwise you're going to need a car. And on that note, let's talk about getting around otherwise with, yes, a car. While the city of Austin, Texas is what I would describe as small, especially when compared to the city of Houston, Dallas, or San Antonio, it is also still in Texas. And what I mean by that is Texas is gigantic. And so once you leave the city limits of Austin and all of a sudden you're in the greater Austin area, it's going to feel more like Texas in terms of point A to point B being a longer distance than usual. You might be coming from a city or a state where things by nature are a bit more smushed together, where point A to point B is perhaps not even on your radar. Well, in a gigantic state like Texas, you might be driving 15 to 20 minutes to get from point A to point B, and that's just the way it is. I mean, to us, it's not really a big deal. However, I haven't really gotten to the subject of traffic yet. I won't ramble too much about traffic because we can all imagine just how horrible traffic is, but what I will say is that it's getting increasingly worse within Austin, Texas. So what you have, instead of some complex, intricate infrastructure to handle the traffic and the population, you have maybe 1, 2, 3 main arteries of travel that are always under construction, but then of course, as if it's some vicious cycle, the construction makes the traffic worse. And I don't know how it is where you guys come from, but construction on a freeway here, not just in Austin, but in Texas, might as well take like 45 years to complete. On top of that, rush hour in Austin, Texas, with the population changing, has gone from bad to worse. I mean, it used to start in the normal hours of maybe 5 or 6 p.m., but now freeways are getting backed up as early as maybe 1, 2, or 3 in the afternoon. It did not used to be that way even 5 years ago. So just keep in mind how bad it will be 5-10 years from now. Moving right along, let's talk neighborhoods in Austin, Texas, and in the greater Austin area. So in the case of Austin, Texas, you definitely have places that will have their own reputations. Take Allendale or the Westlake Hills or South Congress, but not necessarily even places within the city limits of Austin, because for example, you might have a very popular suburb, such as say Leander, Texas, or Round Rock, Texas. My point is, and in our own experience, a lot of people before relocating have done their homework, and rightfully so. Maybe you've been Googling, or maybe you've been watching our videos dedicated to specific towns and suburbs. And so what often happens is, based off of reputation, based off of what you can learn on your phone or computer, based off what other people say about living there, public information as well, such as niche.com talking about schools, statistics, what you'll find is that oftentimes when people finally make that trip to come here and look at homes, to tour with our team, for example, a lot of the places that are on their lists in person hit differently. I couldn't begin to tell you how many times a certain place that's circled at the top of the list is removed from the list entirely after spending some time there. So what I'm getting at perhaps is the importance of choosing the right neighborhood and not just relying on popularity or reputation. Another reason why this is important as well is because of the reputation Austin has, and rightfully so, for being the most expensive city to live in the state of Texas, and of course the reputation of home prices reflecting that. A lot of people look at Austin, Texas with a median home price that ranges around $600,000 and just automatically assume they can't afford it, or even if they can, they're not really going to get much for their money. And I will say, within the city limits of Austin, Texas, that much is true, at least most of the time. But the importance of finding the right neighborhood is also to do with finding places that you can afford that you previously thought you couldn't, at least regarding moving to Austin, Texas as a whole. Truth be told, there are a variety of places, perhaps within 15 to say 45 minutes of the city, that are going to be considerably more affordable. Some of them, yes, the more popular towns or suburbs are going to range around $500,000, maybe $450,000. But then there are also places that have homes, new homes by the way, in the high 2s, in the low 3s, in the mid 3s, in the high 3s, in the low 4s, so on and so forth. So ultimately, it is more doable, more possible, more affordable than you think. But again, back to my initial point, looks can be deceiving, so you want to make sure you thoroughly explore in person, and preferably, subjectively speaking, work with a team of agents such as the Living in Austin group. Now, real quickly, before moving on, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. If we've been providing any value for you, consider clicking the like button as it helps our channel grow. Remember to subscribe, and lastly, share our content with anybody you know who's wanting to learn more about living in Austin, Texas. All right, up next, let's talk about no state income tax, with a catch, in my own opinion. And what I'm getting at is, a lot of people look at Texas, not just Austin specifically, but the state of Texas, and they know that it is a no state income tax state. To be quite honest, that is perhaps not the sole reason people move here, but most certainly one of the many important reasons. And yes, that is great, do not get me wrong, but as mentioned, at least in my opinion, there is a catch, and the catch would of course be property taxes. Property taxes, not just in Austin, Texas specifically, but in the state of Texas, are most certainly going to be worse than wherever it is you're coming from. So many of our clients have come from places where their property tax rates are 0.5%, 1%, maybe 1.5%. Well, in the state of Texas, regardless of city, very often that's going to be easily 2%, more realistically 2.5%, and yes, oftentimes above 3%. So on one hand, it is great that we have no state income tax, but that property tax rate alone, in some people's minds, might as well be like a second mortgage. And for the record, I don't say any of this to discourage you, to dissuade you, to disenchant you, but when you're moving to a new place and you are budgeting and you're getting all of your ducks in a row, it can be very easy to not really take into account those damn property taxes. You don't want them to surprise you or to bite you later. So on this channel, at the risk of being blunt, the more you know. Now lastly, let's talk about something that most people are aware of, that most people know about, but they don't really know until they're here. And that would be the subject of weather. More specifically, perhaps not just the weather, but the heat in Texas, in the South, not just Austin specifically. As we all know, of course, between the months of, say, June, July, and August, we are going to have triple-digit weather here. And of course, you sitting wherever you are right now can think about that, right? You can imagine how it is, or maybe perhaps in some cases you've experienced weather that hot, but when you're here in person and you really feel it, that, in my opinion, is different. And not just for a week, not just for a month, not just for a vacation. I'm talking about living here every day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It is absolutely brutal. The best example I always use, because it really is the most applicable or accurate in my own opinion, is when you are baking cookies in the oven and you open the oven and that wave of heat just comes out and just smacks you. That really is what it's like to step out your front door or get out of your car, whatever it may be, in the peak of summertime. Day after day after day. If you have a car with leather seats, that leather is going to burn you. If you have a front yard with healthy grass and flowers, they're going to die unless you water it incessantly. You're going to be cranking the AC in your home, you're going to be taking more showers, your bills are going to increase. And if you're like me, between the months of June, July, and August, you don't really want to leave your house that much. I imagine it's similar enough to northern states near Canada, where it's cold 6 months of the year and it's really intense and you don't want to leave your house in that case. That's me in the summertime here, unless of course it's to go to the pool and tan. But yeah, just keep that in mind. I mean, I realize to a lot of people I'm probably just stating the obvious that yes, it's hot here, it sucks, we can all agree, but until you're here, you know, it's something that a lot of people are almost dismissive about. So if you know yourself and you know you're someone who just can't really take the heat very well, I would take that into account. And so there you have it, 5 facts we feel you must know before potentially relocating to Austin, Texas. Truth be told, Austin, Texas is a lovely place. People move here all the time, and many people are happy living here. I realize a lot of that was negative, but that's kind of what I do on this channel in case you're new. I keep it real because when you are planning a move and you're dropping all that money, you want the blunt, abrasive, brutal honesty. But having said that, I mean, yes, to be fair, Austin, Texas is still a lovely place to live. People relocate here all the time and people are happy living here. However, Austin, like any other place in the world, is not for everybody. So hopefully in this video, we've helped you arrive at your own conclusion as to whether or not it might be right for you. And of course, if it is, again, that is what we are here for, helping people just like you relocate to the greater Austin area, making that move as smooth as possible and finding that perfect spot. But of course, the only way we can do that is by you reaching out to us. So do not hesitate, whether you are 9 days away or 90, reach out to our team, whether you shoot us a text, send us an email, give us a call any day of the week, any time of day. Again, it is what we love to do. As you know, on this channel, we talk about all things living in Austin, Texas, the good and yes, the bad. So remember to subscribe if you haven't already and ring that little bell to get notified anytime we put out a new video. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Click the like button if we've been providing any value for you. Share it with anybody you know. And until the next one, you guys, my name is Frank. This is Living in Austin, Texas, and we will absolutely catch you later.